Hello and welcome to another edition of Recycle. Don't be a waster. Today's episode is going to be quite a short one, based on really about composting, and this really stems from an article I read in I think it was the Sun Herald or some paper like that in Australia this week, whereby it was talking about composting and what can be composted and the benefits of it. First thing I think I would say, I suppose at Waster we always like to promote recycling. First thing I would say is I personally am not a big, I don't think that, when food waste goes to landfill and we're told that it emits methane due to it being an anaerobic environment, that it's much worse for the environment than if food waste rots away in a domestic composting facility. I'll be honest, that doesn't really, to me, sound the biggest difference in the world. I'm not sure what, maybe some scientists are listening and they think it's a huge difference. In a previous life, I used to actually, I one time thought I was going to work in carbon trading in a previous existence when I was an accountant. And, when you start really digging into the impact of different gases on the environment, my understanding is it's quite tricky to prove, methane versus CO2, etc. So I'm not really going to look into that as the real purpose for composting. Like for me, the benefits are much more practical. Maybe I'm a simple person, but for me, the benefits are you don't have to transport it somewhere. You don't have to have trucks driving through a city. You don't have to have gas or petrol being burned to drive those trucks, which clearly is bad for the environment, for financial reasons, for the city in general with traffic. So clearly if people compost it at home, it makes a lot more sense to me. I think, you reduce the need for trucks driving down city streets. And at the end of the day, food waste in landfill is benefiting nobody. And when I say food waste, we also mean organic waste, leaves, green waste, those things. It's benefiting nobody really in a landfill. But if it's turned into compost, that could be very useful, particularly in a country like Australia where, we face, I was going to say droughts, but I think certainly on the eastern seaboard at the moment, I think a drought seems a long way off. Famous last words, I guess. I think everything goes in cycles, or most things do, and I'm sure in a couple of years we'll be crying out for rain again. But, I think compost, if you make a domestic composter, it basically creates incredible nutrients that can be used for your garden to grow plants, grass, whatever it is in your garden, and make it much more sustainable. You don't have to go to Bunnings or an equivalent or a garden centre and buy, mulches and different composts commercially made. And so you're saving yourself money, which is very important. And, you're getting some benefit from that organic matter, which again is a no-brainer to me, really. It makes perfect sense. So I think it's a great idea. I think anybody with room to do it should consider doing it. And, I suppose what I liked about this article was, I'll be honest, I'm not green-fingered. I'm not the biggest gardener in the world, and I didn't really know what can be composted. I assumed it was just food. But apparently other things can be composted as well, which I thought was very interesting in the article. And we'll link in the article in the show notes, of course, on YouTube and Spotify, etc. Other items that can be disposed of that I wasn't aware of are items such as egg cartons, the cardboard cartons, egg shells themselves, which I suppose naturally enough are organic matter, but I wouldn't have thought that. Even cardboard toilet rolls and paper. And as far as human hair and animal hair, and obviously if you have a dog that sheds hair, you're more than aware of how much that can be. So one of the other things they mentioned was, and we've covered in these podcasts, how in Australia we're progressively banning single-use plastics, that you get in takeaway shops and restaurants, which is great. But with that means you'll almost certainly be receiving more bamboo or wooden forks and utensils, and they can go in the compost as well. So apparently the rule of thumb is that when you make your compost, it should be roughly 3 parts dry, i.e. the cardboard or the leaves, to 1/4 what is called wet or green, such as the food waste. Again, to be honest, that surprised me. I would have assumed it would have been more food waste, but that is interesting. So, I think people might say, I live in an apartment, I don't have capacity for this sort of composting bin or composting waste. And I suppose from our, at Waster, we do speak to quite a few companies. We try to give people some advice, when they call in and ask, what can we do with this waste? And some of the options that we have are a company we work with, Wick Worming, who's a Sydney-based company, and they produce wonderful worm farms that basically are suitable. They look very aesthetic, they look lovely, and you can have them, I suppose, on a balcony, in a garden, or even in an office internally. There's all different sizes. So again, we'll refer you to wickworming.com.au. And then another option is this website that I only became aware of this week, sharewaste.com. So, we often talk about how this stuff, waste, is a resource, how potentially in the future people might even pay for it. And there is a platform. It's, from looking at it, it's built by people who, they're not full-time on this role. I think they've got big jobs with companies like Canva, etc. But they've built this platform where basically you can find people who want that organic waste and who will take it in your local area. Whether they're farmers, chicken farmers, gardeners, market gardeners, whatever they are. And so that is sharewaste.com. And again, we'll link to that in the show notes below. So I think these are really interesting concepts. I think, I think it's moving towards that concept where waste is not waste. It is valuable. It's, we've seen this with cardboard, with metals, etc. And obviously with food waste, clearly great not to throw it in landfill. Obviously, the less we can produce, the better. If people are going hungry, clearly it's good to utilising services like Second Life and these sort of companies who provide food to homeless people and the needy in Australia and overseas. So clearly that's great, but obviously we're never going to get rid of food waste. And I think then it's, utilise it as well as possible, minimise the environmental aspects, and what one person wants rid of, somebody else is keen to get. So yeah, those two sites, sharewaste.com and Wick Worming, that's WICKWORMING.com.au, are two great options. So I think we'll leave it there today. Anybody with green fingers, go out and get stuck into some composting this weekend and see how your garden improves. So we'll leave it there. Recycle, don't be a waster.